You're good to go.
Okay. Jackie, can you do the roll call?
Legislator Jackson. Legislator Hopstein. Legislator Yeager. Legislator Saskin.
Okay, so we have 5 people here, which is not a quorum. But since we're not going to take any action tonight, we'll continue with the presentation without a quorum and without calling the meeting to order. I will ask everyone to rise and we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance, led by Director of Finance, Legislative Director of Finance.
Pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice.
Seated. I'll ask our very able Director of Legislative Fiscal Affairs, Nicole Doliner, to do the budget report. I believe everyone has the report that Nicole has put together. And it's a 31-page report. Has many good information in it. But Nicole, if you could give us a very short synopsis on the report.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm just going to go through and try to summarize what's in this report. Each year, the legislature is tasked with adopting a plan for budgeting the resources required to operate county government. The budget or plan must be balanced with the anticipated revenue equal to the expenses. The proposed budget for 2023 is a plan for anticipated revenue and expenses. But as Robert Burns so eloquently wrote, the best laid plans of mice and men often go awry. One way to ensure that the plan for 2023 does not go awry is to review and analyze the expenses and revenues contained within the proposed budget and to determine whether they are reasonable. As your fiscal advisor, I have been tasked with providing a review and analysis of the 2023 proposed budget. An examination of historical data, current trends, and the proposed budget offers a look at the past, present, and possible future of the fiscal condition of the operation of county government. The proposed 2023 budget of $812.4 million is 2.9% higher than the 2022 adopted budget of $789.7 million. Pages 2 through 10 of the report present an explanation and analysis of the expense categories and compares the 2022 adopted budget with the 2023 proposed for all of the expense categories such as salaries, benefits, equipment, supplies, etc. A projection for personal services, which is our largest expense category, is contained on page 3. Under program expense, mandated services and health and social services were reviewed and analyzed against historical data and current trends on page 12 and 14. And the Sheriff's Department, as one of our largest departments, was also reviewed on page 16. The County Road Fund and Road Machinery Fund were reviewed and determined to be reasonable for 2023. Both funds derive most of their revenue from a contribution from the general fund and thereby balanced and require no change as noted on page 17. The Internal Services Fund, or what we call DGS, increased by $2.5 million, and this was necessary to fund collective bargaining increases for salaries and projected increases in costs for motor fuel and utilities, as noted on pages 18 through 19. Major revenue categories were reviewed on pages 20 through 24. The proposed property tax on page 20 was analyzed to determine whether the property tax cap formula was followed, and the answer is yes. Other revenues, such as patient service fees in the health department, were reviewed and deemed reasonable, as noted on page 25. State federal reimbursement levels for mandated services in health and social services, like the expenses, were compared to historical data and current trends and were deemed to be reasonable, as noted again on pages 12 through 14. Fare box collections, which will resume next spring, were reviewed and deemed reasonable, as noted on page 13. Page 27 is a chart depicting the past history of the county's general fund balances. Starting in 2013, when the county had a negative fund balance of $133 million, the chart shows the estimate for the year ending 2021 at a positive $174.9 million. 2021 year estimate year-end surplus of $88 million contributed to this fund balance. Also included in the report on page 29 is an accounting of the grants allocated from the American Rescue Plan Act funds. To date, the county has been awarded $63 million, of which only $18 million has been allocated to the 2022 budget. The remaining amount is in a reserve account outside of the current operating budget. And there are no American Rescue Plan Act funds allocated in the proposed 2023. So let's get to the meat of the matter, which is the summary of findings. The proposed 2023 budget is balanced with anticipated revenues equal to expected expenditures. The question remains, is it reasonable? Will the plan go awry? There are no guarantees. We can only make educated projections for 2023. Here's a summary of projected potential variances, starting with expense. The most notable expense increase in the proposed budget is $15.5 million for payroll expenditures such as salaries and overtime. Increases in salaries attributed to labor settlements of a 3% cost of living adjustment for 2022 and a compounded 3% adjusted for 2023 amounts to a $9.5 million of this expense increase. Cost of contractual steps and longevity increments amount to $4 million of the increase, and the cost of 43 proposed new positions with a net cost of $2 million when you take into account positions that are proposed to be eliminated. Overtime increases in the Sheriff's Correction Unit of $1 million to cover shifts due to vacancies. As of the November 4th vacancy report, there are 194 vacant positions in the general fund. Assuming these vacancies will not be filled on January 1st of 2023, there will be salary savings generated by these unfilled positions. Using the number of vacant positions in the three largest departments, health, social services, and sheriff, salaries for the 134 vacant positions in these departments total $7.8 million. Salary savings based on positions being vacant for half the year, the projection is for $3.9 million in gross savings. Then we need to adjust that for the loss in state and federal reimbursements that will not be received in health and social services, and the net salary savings is about $2.75 million. So there we have a positive variance for 2023 with a net savings of $2.75 million. Another area for potential savings is health insurance. Historical data suggests that health insurance continues to be over budgeted. Health insurance is proposed at $74.5 million, and this is $3 million more than the 2022 adopted, and $12.6 million more than the 2021 actual expense. 2022 is currently trending at about $70.2 million for the year. Projection for 2023 is roughly $73.5 million, taking into account possible increases in the rates of the New York State Health Insurance Plan, which would result in a $1 million positive variance in 2023. A few weeks ago, we discussed the non-property tax revenues in the proposed budget. The 2023 proposed budgets for sales tax, mortgage tax, and hotel motel tax are all reasonably close, with some slight conservative adjustments that could be considered. Starting with sales tax on page 21. Sales tax is proposed in the 2023 budget at $261 million. In the report, the year-to-date sales tax for 2022 is presented at $206 million, including the first November payment, and is $16 million higher than the same period of 2021. So we're now currently trending at 8% higher than 2021. However, the second November sales tax payment was just posted. So now the year-to-date for 2022 is now $220.2 million and trending at 9% higher than the same period as 2021. So if we take a very conservative approach for the 2022 projection and assume only an overall 4% increase over 2021, the 2022 projection for sales tax would be roughly $272 million. That's $32 million over the current budget of $240 million and $11 million more than the proposed $261 million in 2023. With an economic outlook by some of a weakened economy, it might be best to not assume any growth in sales tax over 2022 for 2023. Assuming a zero growth in sales tax, the 2023 projection for sales tax is $272 million, or as just stated earlier, $11 million more than the proposed $261 million. Assuming a 2% drop in sales tax receipts, the 2023 projection for sales tax is $267 million, or $6 million more than the proposed $261 million. Assuming a 4% drop in sales tax receipts, the 2023 projection is $261 million, or at the proposed budget amount. The projected positive variance has a range of anywhere between $6 to $11 million. Using an extremely conservative approach, 2023 would be projected at $263 million, and this would assume only a $2 million positive variance over the proposed. Sales tax revenue in the budget could increase by roughly $2 million, with a small offset for the increase in the revenue sharing expense with the towns and villages. Next up is mortgage tax on page 23, proposed in 2023 at $10 million. 2021 mortgage tax receipts were at an all-time high, with $11.9 million generated for the county. 2022 is currently trending at only $9 million. Looking ahead, the rise in interest rates may slow the sale of homes and refinances, which generate mortgage taxes. Therefore, the projection for 2023 is only $9 million. And so we have a negative variance of $1 million compared to the proposed budget of $10 million. So a decrease in the mortgage tax by $1 million could be considered. So to recap of the minor budget variances based on the findings on page 30, you have a positive variance in salary savings of $3.9 million, offset by negative variance of state federal reimbursement of $1.2 million, a positive variance in health insurance expense of $1 million, a positive variance in sales tax revenue of $2 million, offset with negative variance of the revenue sharing small amount of $258,000, and a negative variance in mortgage tax revenue of $1 million, resulting in a net change of a positive variance of $4.5 million. One suggestion would be to balance the $4.5 million positive variance and place it in a contingent account called Reserve for Future Debt Service. This could be used to cover approximately a third of the final payment of the deficit bond in 2024, thereby reducing the amount of local taxation required to pay for the deficit bond in 2024. Placing the projected positive variances in reserve would ensure that the 2023 budget would remain balanced should any of these projections go awry. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, we'll open this up for questions. Legislator Yeager?
I think I understand it, but I just want to make sure. The salary line with taking out the net of about 1.6 million from the new jobs and the eliminated jobs for next year, there's approximately an 8.2% increase in the salary line. And that's because of a combination of non-2024 budget items. In other words, it's extra expenditures needed to pay past COLA and future COLA, and also the $4 million for the steps. Is that the 8.2 million? Is that the 8.2%, I mean?
Right. So just to remind you, the collective bargaining increases that you all approved were after the adoption of the budget last year. Last year, the 22 budget, our current budget, 2022 budget was adopted with $8 million in contractual reserve. And that was the reserve for the contracts that were unsettled at the time.
Okay.
At the beginning of this year, that $8 million, or most of it, was transferred out of contractual reserve and then onto the salary lines. And there were resolutions that were passed by this body that had tremendous backup to it, where they actually moved money into every individual department that had the WAN employees, the CSEA employees, the transit, sheriff's transit workers, et cetera. So when you compare the 2022 adopted budget to 2023, the 2022 adopted budget did not have the 3% that was awarded in 2020 for 2022.
Understood.
And then you have to compound it for 2023 because you're getting 3% on top of what you already got 3%.
I understand.
Right? And then, as you said, we have what we call steps and longevity increments for union employees, whereby based on the number of years they've served, they get a step, and then after a certain amount of time, they get what's called longevity.
Okay. I just have one more question, Mr. Chair, very quickly.
Sure.
If we do nothing as with regard to your budget amendments, your guesstimate is that we're going to end the year with some sort of surplus approaching about $4.5 million over what the county executive has in his budget?
You mean for 2023?
Is this 20? Yes, for 2023, correct. Right?
This is a very conservative amount of what I expect the surplus to be in 2023. It could be
So,
more.
so I'm saying, in other words, we don't, my question is, if we do nothing, if we don't add to salary savings and take off from state and federal offset and add to health, or reduce from health insurance and add to revenue share, right? All the reds, I think, is where you think there's a deficit. And so if we do none of that, at the end of the year, we'll have to shuffle money around, but we're going to end up, in your estimation, with a net of about 4.5 million.
Just for these particular items,
Right.
yeah. But we could have surpluses in supplies,
Other areas as
equipment,
well.
et cetera, but, you know, it's too early to tell.
I understand.
Okay.
All right, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Obviously, this is extremely well done and easy to understand, most importantly. Thank you.
Any other questions? Legislator Soskin.
First, I'd like to thank you and congratulate you on a tremendous job. Okay, as far as the sales tax is concerned, if things keep going the way they are, I don't think we have to be that conservative, really. Because as long as we have inflation, items cost more. And when the items cost more, we collect more sales tax. And unfortunately, in the near future, I don't foresee any changes. I hope I'm wrong, but I don't foresee any changes. So I think you're very safe in the sales tax area for this year or next year. And that's about it. All the best.
Can I ask a question?
Uh,
Withdraw.
We'll do Charles.
Mr. Grant could go first. He's a member of the committee.
Well, I just wanted to thank Nicole for taking on the task of doing this report for us, for putting in plain English her findings in a very big budget of $812 million. It's not an easy task. Usually there's a staff from an accounting office that does this for us. For a variety of reasons, that didn't happen this year. We'll try to get that worked out before next year. But I hope all of the legislators take the time to read this document. It's not overwhelming in its size, and it very succinctly places everything in context.
Charles. Thank you. Again, Nicole saved us $70,000 that we had budgeted for. Two questions. The $4 million surplus you're talking about, is there any reason you're recommending that we put it in a restricted account to pay off the deficit bond 2 years from now? Or is that just an opinion
It's just a suggestion. Obviously, as the appropriating branch of government, it is up to all of you to decide how you're going to appropriate funds in a budget. I'm making this suggestion because, like I said earlier, we have no way of knowing what's going to happen in 2023. There's with the economy and what's going to happen as far as the hiring process. I mean, for example, we had the Commissioner of Personnel here last week, 2 weeks ago, and she talked about the difficulty in hiring folks. So I have a feeling that these vacancies are going to remain. But then we have to remember that on the flip side, in social services and in the health department, we then lose revenue because we cannot voucher the state of New York for work that's not being done. We can't ask them to reimburse us for employees that we're not paying.
Okay.
So, but I also know that last year, there was quite a bit of discussion about putting money towards the deficit bond and trying to find a way to pay it off earlier than the term of the bond. We found out that we were not allowed to do that we couldn't pay it off early. However, there was then a thought of, let's take some of our surplus monies and set it aside to pay that off so we would have it. And the other point I want to make is that when we were talking about pension, the cost of retirement, In 2023, it goes down to 18 million, which was a drop compared to what we had budgeted in 2022 and far less than what we've had to pay in past years. However, the Commissioner of Finance pointed out that in 2024, we could be looking at a big increase, depending on what the New York State Comptroller comes up with in terms of the rates that we're going to have to pay.
Right.
So I always like to be prepared. And so in 2024, if all of a sudden we have additional expenditures that we don't have now, if we could have a way in which to maybe pay certain expenses like the deficit bond, then that would free up that $4 million for, let's just say, an increase in the pension costs or an increase in something unforeseen that hasn't happened yet.
My second question is indirect. Do we know or can we get information on the Office of Building and Code Enforcement to date, what they've expensed and what they've taken in? Which maybe includes the, just not, I'm not misled, there's $500,000, I believe, that they received as a grant, which, you know, if you get two numbers, revenue and expenses, it may look like they actually took in $500,000. And while it is their money, it's not. So I'm looking at a checkbook breakdown, you know, what is the current situation there? I don't know if they've issued a report yet. I haven't seen one, but I'd like to know where we're tracking, because as we've discussed, the county may be laying out money to fund this, which we all understood going in, may be a possibility, but I think we should know where we are. So I don't know if we can do an action item at this meeting.
You'd be happy to know that Nicole has already prepared that information for us yesterday.
That's because I asked you Monday, right? When was it? Tuesday we met?
Actually,
I asked her Tuesday.
yeah, I did take a look at that. So this year, the 2022 budget was amended to add the Office of Building and Codes. And again, the legislature appropriated that money by resolution. So it was approximately $1.5 million in expenses and $1.5 million in revenue, in anticipated revenue. So on paper, it looks like it's no cost to the county. So I took a look at year to date what they've actually spent. And they've actually spent just under $500,000. And I looked at the actual revenue to date, and it was about just under $500,000. So it was, oh, thank you, Michael. So it was pretty even. Actually, yeah. Wonderful. Thank you, Michael. So, yeah, of the $1.5 million, or actually $1.6 million total budget, they have spent $437,000. They have also encumbrances of another 400 and change. And so then I also looked at the revenue, and year to date, they've got $588,000 worth of revenue. Incidentally, most of that revenue, believe it or not, is for building and alteration permits, $350,000. So if I look at it where they are right now in the year, they look like they're about even. But as you said, you know, there's the $500,000 grant that's supposed to come from the state. So far, year to date, we've only received $50,000 of that $500,000. I'm assuming that's because they have not yet vouchered the state for the work that they're doing. And I also want to point out that most of the expense that has been spent so far is in the area of fees for services. So these are the outside contractors that the county has hired in order to perform this work.
Right.
Most of them are the code enforcers and the hearing officers. And I actually provided Michael with a list of, you know, all those. That is, there we go, second one, there we go. All right, so.
The proposed budget is about 800,000, a little
Right.
more than $800,000 for 2023 for the same initiative.
Yeah, my concern was that all those proposals were really based on
No experience.
experience. So,
Right.
so right now, we can say that the county taxpayer hasn't had to bill for anything there,
Not yet.
not yet.
Yeah, and then as Michael points out, for 2023, the budget is about 853,000. It's not 1,000,005 for 2023. So assuming that the county continues to collect
Fines.
on the fees and continues to receive the money from the state as promised,
Mhm.
you know, it should not be a cost to the taxpayer in Rockland County.
Okay.
Fingers crossed.
Right, but fine revenue is not dramatic, let's say. Okay, all right. Thank you, Nicole.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think that we should be very aware of the fact that although prices are going up and sales tax revenue might be higher due to higher prices, we have to understand the other side of that sword, and that is that because prices have gone up and we are in such financial uncertainty, a lot of people might tend to refrain from spending the way they did in the past, especially during the holiday season. People are now choosing whether they're going to, what they're buying in the supermarket. I would think that they are going to hesitate before they just spend what they did in prior years for the Christmas gifts and Hanukkah gifts and Kwanzaa gifts for 2022. So I think 2023 could be a difficult year for us, and we should be careful, especially because we rely so much on sales tax revenue that the economy is not in the best of conditions, and people might just not be spending that money.
Okay. Commissioner, did you see the report?
Yes, I did. Nice job, Nicole. You did a much better job than previous people we've hired. I have to tell you that. And you're right. It's a plan you could understand, which is amazing and great. The only thing I would have to mention to you, and I have a concern about it, is the mortgage tax. And the mortgage tax is coming in 9.2, just like you had analyzed it. But I just got the recent last 6 months, and it dropped every month. Every month it dropped. So if we're at 9.2, I could see us being, another million or 2 million, even less. We could hit the, mid sevens on the mortgage tax. That's how much it's dropping. Other than that, everything else I agree 100% with, but that is a concern. And the only reason I bring it up now is because I just got the last 6 months. Like I said, every month dropped. Thank you.
Yeah, I think mortgage tax is probably the most vulnerable thing. In Rockland County, we're very fortunate that we have a relatively strong economy compared to some others. I think inflation is largely driven by some factors that could stop overnight. The war in Ukraine, the energy crisis that's created might help tremendously. Pandemic getting back on supply chain might shorten this inflation cycle. But I saw an article the other day where a 1 point increase in the mortgage rate could add to a typical mortgage $1,000 a month. And that's when people stop buying homes. They might not stop buying goods right away, but they stop buying homes. And then there's the chain reaction after that into the appliances and furnishings and
I
rehab.
spoke to real estate brokers and they tell me a lot of listings have dropped off their radar. And of course, there's no refinancings at all.
Mm.
So that's going to be the tough nut, I think, for us to see coming next year.
Okay. Anything else? Motion to adopt the budget?
Mr. Chairman, I think the disappointing attendance tonight is because this is an easier year than most. Some of us have sat through some very difficult years where where the budget consultant's analysis and Nicole's analysis, which supports it, has made for some very difficult decisions that are sometimes at odds with who's ever holding the office of the county executive. I think maybe our colleagues aren't here tonight because they think this one's an easy one, and they should count their blessings.
Well, yes, Legislator Yeager. Legislator Soskin.
Yeah, I heard something about there being some adjustments for this year. Did anything come through? Adjustments to the budget, you know, at the year end, prior years, we always had adjustments. I heard a rumor, I mean, I don't know if it's true or not, but do we have any adjustments this year in addition to whatever we've, the county executive and we have decided upon?
22, proposed amendments from legislators.
Yeah, possibly from legislators, possibly from corrections. I don't know. I don't know what, I don't know the source, but I heard conversation that there was an adjustment.
Are you referring to when we get what they used to call technical adjustments from the, right? So in other words, there are items that may have modified this year's budget that will not be, that because it happened after they put together the proposed budget. For example, if a new position was added in the last month, it's not going to be in the proposed budget because it happened after the fact. So sometimes, or the same thing with capital projects. There are capital project that may have been added.
We have one technical adjustment. That was
Oh,
the DA's
okay, so
office.
there's the answer.
That was for a position in the yeah, it's one new position for the DA. That's the only adjustment.
See, why is the health insurance cost going down? That sort of, are they is the general contract cutting out services? Or, I mean, everything seems very strange.
Oh, what's in the proposed budget is more than what was in last year's budget, and actually in 2022. So, no, the costs are increasing, but the question is, how much are they increasing? They may not be increasing quite as much as what's in the proposed.
Do we have anybody looking at the insurance plan to see if the benefits are changing from the plan, or are we just accepting?
I think
the
Mr.
state-
Grogan can answer that because they're the ones who are in touch with NISHIP.
We were just informed the other day that Aetna and Oxford, that two HMOs in our health insurance.
Yeah.
Went up for next year, 5.2%.
Mhm.
I've not gotten any information yet from the Empire plan yet. They've been late for the last X number of years presenting what the rates are.
Right.
I can't tell you when they're gonna do it, but if the two HMOs are doing 5.2, I'm assuming it's gonna be in that ballpark for the Empire. I don't know, but I'm just guessing. The budget included a 5% increase.
I see. Do we have anybody here in the county? I know because in prior years, we used to have someone here who used to review the plan and made adjustments to it.
Insurance coordinator, or working with Empire. I don't know what kind of cosmetic or behind the scenes change Empire is planning.
Right.
Contractual with the CSEA and RAM, you know, what they can change and what they can't change. I hope they make cosmetic changes. I need to know.
Okay, thank you.
It's a free, I don't think that's allowed.
Okay,
Just want to make sure.
Sure.
There might be some minor changes.
so according to what we had scheduled, we have at the next committee meeting, it's on the agenda, okay, which is at our November 21st meeting, which is, what was it? Which is this coming Monday. We're going to have our regular committee meetings, and the budget review is requests from legislators. In other words, if there are any requests of legislators to look at specific items in the budget, specific departments, that's where we have scheduled in the agenda. It appears to me that what Legislator Grant has said before, that this year has been a very easy budget to put together. And this didn't just happen in a vacuum. It has been after a tremendous amount of work and toil of everyone involved, not just on the executive branch. It's on the legislative side of the aisle, and sheriff, the district attorney, all have worked over the years to get us where we are right now. And I think the county is extremely well positioned for anything that is waiting for us behind the door. You know, people talk about inflation. Some even talk about a big R, recession. So this is where we are right now. However, the next committee meeting is open to legislators. It doesn't look like anyone has an interest to raise anything then. No, that meeting is scheduled for specific items in the budget, specific departments in the budgets that a various legislator would like to look at. So we would schedule, I'll ask Jackie to send out an email tomorrow and asking legislators if they have an interest in looking at the various lines, departments in the budget they would like to have a closer look at. Because, you know, we have reviewed over the past couple of meetings, the sheriff's department and the various departments we looked at, and the various items on the budget, including tonight with the overview. But maybe a specific legislator would like to look at, for example, at, you know, the budget review line that we took out this year. And they would like to expand upon what that saved, $75,000. So you want to expand upon that. We could bring in the Commissioner of Finance to give us a whole presentation on that savings and what that means and how, you know, or someone wants to look at the health department, you know, we could try to have the health commissioner come in and talk to us, or highway department, or Commissioner of Finance, whatever. That committee has been blocked out for individual legislators to take a closer look. And if they need to have it done in public and have the various commissioners, directors come in, we would schedule that. So I'll ask Jackie to send out an email tomorrow reminding legislators that's their time. And then okay. Yes, sure. Well, if legislators are going to ask, they're going to want to. I would. Can we notify them tomorrow? You know, let's just be optimistic. No one is going to ask for no one to show up. If they have anything, we'll let you know, and they will make accommodations. And I think in lieu of people not being here, finance, I'm assuming that. I'm assuming that we're not going to have anyone, you know, having to come if they can't come. Then the following committee meeting is when we're going. That's after the Thanksgiving break, which is November the 30th, right? That's on a Wednesday, November 30th. That's where we have the budget review / adopt schedules. That's where anyone wants to come up with anything, revising or changing the budget, that's going to be the time to do it. I've seen legislators come in and just scramble something on a piece of paper and presenting it and saying, this is what we're looking at adopting a budget. And I've seen legislators coming into with a comprehensive change of, so we'll ask you to make copies for all legislators to look at. And if you're going to change anything with the, on the expense, make sure it's balanced, the revenues and all the schedules are balanced. And then we'll take a vote, which is going to be a vote just for the committee people. In other words, just for the Budget and Finance Committee to adopt the schedules. And then it goes to the full legislature, where legislature will have an opportunity again to propose any amendments. But it's for the full legislature. So this is the time frame. Then the full legislature is going to meet the following date, which is Thursday, December 1st, which is when, what was it? That's what it says. 7 p.m. Okay. Thursday, December 1st, 7 p.m. That's when the full legislature is going to meet to adopt the budget. So this is the schedule. Commissioner? Okay. Nicole? We good? Minority Leader? Okay,
Thank you, Nicole.
that's it.
Thank you very much.
So we're good. Thank you very much and good night.